Hello. Well, we have a pretty cozy crowd. Everybody's into marketing today. But we are in what is usually a pretty hot topic. So let me introduce myself. I'm Judy McDonald, the Executive Director with Workforce Solutions for Tarrant County. And I know that name has come up a couple times since I've been here. But we are in the business of helping employers find talent and preparing the job seekers for those jobs. And there's 28 of us in Texas, and there's 3 of us here in North Texas. So, I heard people from Dallas, and, there's folks from Stephenville and other areas. Well, we all get along. And so if you pass a boundary or something, nothing happens to you. We just give you another name of somebody who's probably closer to you. We are actually big fans of each other. In Tarrant County, we serve Fort Worth and Arlington, and as the late, great Judge Vandegrift used to remind me, and the other 40 cities in Tarrant County, and that's the largest number of cities in any county in Texas. All that aside, let's get started, and I'm going to let our panelists introduce themselves. So I'll start with Leslie. She's one of our, I'm just calling her Leslie. She's one of our board members, so I'm pretty familiar with her. Chad we'll get to later. I've known him a total of 45 minutes, and Lourdes, I've known about 3 minutes. So here we go. Leslie.
Hi, everybody. I am Leslie Scott. I'm Director of Human Resources for Mother Parker's Tea and Coffee. I support the operations team. We have presence here in Fort Worth and south of town at the never-ending growth, it seems, for distribution centers at 35 and Everman. We produce coffee and tea and are Canadian-owned, private, family-owned business. So we have presence both in Fort Worth as well as in Canada. And as Judy mentioned, I've been a longstanding member of the Workforce Solutions for Tarrant County Board. So,
Lourdes Ramboa. I am a faculty and chair for business and entrepreneurship for Tarrant County College. And I also have owned my own business prior to going to TCC and still do some work around that. And then had the opportunity to work for really big organizations before that time. And then I was part of 2 startups, which got me the idea that maybe I should start my own business, which I don't know why, because I had gone through the madness twice and decided to do it a 3rd time. So happy to be here.
Chad Stilwell. I'm the Chief Technology Officer for Agora Data. We're a fintech here in Arlington that focuses on enabling any car dealership to be their own finance company. We do that through a proprietary artificial intelligence that we've developed and is patent pending. We were incorporated in 2017, and I was actually involved on the side before they were incorporated and officially joined in 2019 when we had, I believe, 15 employees at the time. We've gone through multiple raises, cap raises at this point, and have grown to around 150 employees today. So well-versed in the journey of going from small business and starting to scale and grow and all of the wonderful things that come with that, and the growing pains as well. So looking forward to sharing some of that experience with you today.
You're on mute. We were planning for 10 or 15 minutes for Q&A, and we might be able to allow for even more of that today. And we're talking about recruiting, training, and retaining talent today. And for a while, recruiting talent was such a hot issue that I almost wanted to hide a few times. But over time, some of that has changed, but it's still not. It's not like it has solved. But we're going to talk about some of that. The job market recently has mostly been in favor of the job seeker. That's changed a little bit, but I know all the companies have really had to look internally at their policies, what they were doing to attract talent, what strategies they had. And so that's what I'm asking them, kind of what strategies, what changes did your company make to attract talent? I'm looking at Chad. You want to go first? Well, gentlemen first.
All righty. So the pandemic brought a lot of changes. I think the biggest one was remote work, and now I think a lot of us are returning to a version of normalcy pre-pandemic. But with that, as employers, we have to be flexible. So that to us means offering a variety of different work solutions. So whether that's employees that want to be fully remote, or those that want to be hybrid, which seems to be the new normal, if I would say, and that's anywhere from 1 to usually 3 days from home and a couple days in the office. So it's a little bit of best of both worlds, and that seems to be the answer that really attracts and retains people, and it's what most folks want right now. They got used to the remote thing, but they also like the idea of being able to go into the office and form relationships and talk to people and socialize. So it's maybe a little bit different because you're still having to carry the overhead of an office that isn't occupied for the full 5 days of the week. So it's very different, but it's definitely one of the things we've seen that has been very successful in keeping and retaining people. The other part is with remote being a fact of life nowadays. It's how do we connect with the people that aren't in the office every day, or those that are remote most days, and making sure that we're building those relationships, because at the end of the day, people want to work for an organization where they feel included and heard. So making sure you have those outreach programs and making sure you're touching base with folks and building those relationships is paramount.
So for me, looking at it from a little bit of a different perspective is tapping into something that Chad said, which is how do we provide individuals within the education system, the higher education system, the skill sets that are needed for this new type of environment, right? Because it is new. It's about how do I effectively communicate with my manager who is not in an office every day? How do I effectively produce what I'm expected to produce, even though I don't have somebody to tap into immediately by walking down the hallway? So how do we develop those skills, and how do we provide them those skills to ensure that they continue to be at the forefront of what they do and how they present themselves to potential employers, right? And at the same time, I've done this before, and I still do it today after the pandemic, and that is understand the environment that you are going to go work for. Ask the questions that are important to you in terms of value alignment, right? So what are my values, and how do they align with the values of the organization that I'm interviewing with or that I'm choosing to research to potentially go work for, to ensure that there's a long-term relationship. Because if there's alignment, I'm more likely to be content in that environment than when I don't quite know what to expect going into that organization and not knowing exactly what to do when things just go kind of sideways, right? So giving those giving those skills, teaching them about asking the right questions, teaching them about working within an environment where there's not a lot of communication. We've changed too, in that TCC has always offered online classes, but probably today we're at about a 60-40 split between online and face-to-face. So through those online courses, we are generating the education so that when you need them, to be on their own 3 days a week, they know exactly how to operate in that environment, what tools to use, how to use the tools, how to effectively communicate. And then hopefully that will help these guys in the recruiting and the retention component of it.
So in a manufacturing environment, you have a disproportionate group of folks who have to be there every day or your product doesn't make it out the door. And balancing those that can work from home and can ask for that hybrid work-life balance and those that cannot has been a challenge for us, believe it or not. We've had that where you have those that you really want in the office. They don't have to be. And so we had to take our entire business model from an administrative standpoint and really ask those questions of, do we have to have 8 customer service folks in their cubes on site every single day? And the answer is no. Our customers are all over North America. Why would we insist on them just so I can walk by and say, hello, Brittany, are you here today? Yes, thank you for being here. We're so glad you're here. Thank you, Renee. And what we have done is we've changed our culture and how we meet too. I have no problem now picking up the phone, and by picking up the phone, I click Teams. And you find in the meetings as we start, people apologize for not having their camera on. They find, like they're having internet connectivity issues to get bandwidth, et cetera, versus it used to be, I'm not turning on my camera, I don't care what you tell me. And so we've changed that philosophy as well and how we approach it on a business basis so that we can keep people engaged. We have intentionally set it so that our meetings are, even if they're virtual, they're on camera so that we can see that people are truly engaged. While you can't see all of the body language, it does give you an indication of whether or not someone really wants to be there and participate. So it's been a big journey for us, but I think as an organization we are better. We rely on our remote workers to do their work at their own pace and still deliver a top quality product at the standards that we require. And then we wouldn't be here today if we didn't have the amazing crews that we did throughout the pandemic, who people came to work every single day when everybody else was on lockdown. That took a lot of courage, and we did the best we could to protect them. So it's been a journey for us as well.
As I said, we talked to a lot of companies, and I think what y'all said is that it's been a journey. It's evolving. People are constantly evaluating, and I think that's kind of where I was going next. Like, then how do you retain folks? What did all this change really mean to your company? Chad, you touched on something like space. I mean, I'm an employer also. So there's a company, and then there's all the workforce centers, and we do things virtually. And you walk in the centers, do we need all this space? It's budget time, what do we do now? And so everyone's making these decisions, but then you're really having to look hard. What really has worked? What did you really find that you liked in all this? And are you still analyzing the impact of all these decisions? Any extra thoughts there, Ms. Leslie?
From a culture perspective, it really did impact us. We started relying, as I mentioned before, we started relying on people who were beyond just our home offices and beyond our locations more. So where previously you would have been intimidated to pick up the phone and call Chad because he works in another office, we worried about our own 4 walls, where now we truly are the North American company that we've always said that we are, and our marketing teams could market across the entire network without being forced to do it. And I could pick on any department: marketing, customer service, product development. They've all really been able to tap into their counterparts across the system without any problem, whereas before, a production manager would have never called another production manager to ask a question, right? So it's actually brought us together in a strange way.
Yeah, I think that along those lines, I go back to communication. I think you guys know we have at TCC a diverse group of employees, of students. We can have the young adult that just graduated high school all the way to the person that is seeking a second career at this point. And so different ways of communicating within the classroom have to exist, especially in an online classroom. And so teaching those, those skills that are going to help with that has been what really the students themselves have found value in, and that oftentimes they'll say, I tried what you suggested at work, and this is what happened. And so we see them applying a lot of those lessons learned in the classroom in their work environment. The majority of the students, something like 78% of our students, have a full-time job. So they are applying what we are showing in the classroom, what we're learning in the classroom immediately for the most part, because they have to. And so engaging in that way and helping them ask the right questions, again, because the younger ones, for example, going to another product manager that I've never talked to is kind of like, what? Like, can I just send them an email? Well, you can, introductory email, right? But then pick up the phone or Teams and say, hey, I just sent that email. I wanted you to put a name to a face or a name to a voice. Here I am. And so those are the kinds of things that I think keep the students engaged and continuing to learn, but also will help in the workplace from their perspective to ensure that they're prepared and they're doing the things that they need to do to add value and also feel engaged within the workforce.
Awesome. I have a couple lessons learned to double down on a few things that you all said that have been really important to us succeeding and, first of all, communicating. With remote work, it introduced a lot of challenges, and I think communication was the biggest one. And the biggest lesson learned from that was being very intentional about how you communicate and the channels of communication. When you're in the office in person, you have a question, you walk up to the person, tap them on the shoulder, and you ask the question. When you're remote, it's not that easy, and there's a hesitancy to, get on Teams and call somebody. You don't know if they're busy or what they're working on. So you try to schedule a meeting, and their calendar's full, and and it's just like, oh, well, I guess I'll try tomorrow, and it just slows everything down. So being really intentional about having and scheduling those checkpoints with team members, not only one-on-one, but at every level. So, if you're a people leader, you're meeting with your team and you're meeting with the individuals on your team and you're meeting with your leaders. And, all the way up the chain, making sure that you're having those touch points and being very intentional about it, and having them on your calendar and scheduled. It's one of my favorite things that we've learned from it, because I think our communication just as a company as a whole has gotten so much better through those lessons learned. On the culture point that you had, and telling potential employees and college students to ask questions about values. In building a company from a few people to over 100, that's one of the most important things I think I can stress, is that the best employee, as far as a resume, may not be the best employee for your organization. The culture fit is more important than the resume qualification fit. People are impressive and have a great capacity to learn and do things if they fit into the values and the culture that you've built as an organization. And you'll get way more out of that person that aligns to what you've built than someone that maybe already has that skill set but doesn't fit inside of your culture. And we've seen that time and time again, and hiring is so difficult. Interviewing is maybe one of the worst sciences in the entire world.
And Chad, you had brought up that as a question, you could do a session on that. And I was going to go back to attracting, but you hit on something, just the whole, what is attractive? You said the resume is not. And we had talked about the fact that there is so much discussion on do you still value credentials the same way? Is a high school diploma, is a college degree, do you think of it the same way? what skills, what's experience, and how do you get to all that? So I was gonna, that's not an easy one to, to determine in a interview, but I was just like, if y'all can tell me what you're thinking on that, I'd appreciate that.
Well, I think Chad's absolutely correct. One of the things that we've struggled with is getting our hiring managers to find that cultural connection, find people that you want to work with that have the same values that you have, that want to work in the same environment. Yes, the credentials are nice, and you want to start there, but you really want to hire for the competencies. You don't necessarily always, I know I didn't take a straight line career path. It zigs and it zags, and sometimes you go back to other things, and it really has always boiled down, I know personally for me, with the environment in which I work, that we call culture now, and that they have those same beliefs, that we all feel like we're doing something for the greater good, and that we can impact that. And that I think, is the secret sauce to any great organization.
I would agree. Again, I think we are beginning, and you guys are probably at the forefront of this as employers, to sort of reevaluate what exactly do I need somebody that comes to work for me to have in terms of credentialing, right? Do I really need somebody to have a bachelor's degree? Do I really need to have somebody that has education past high school, right? What is it that I exactly need? And what exactly is it that I need them to do for our organization? And the clearer I think that we can get around that, the better your partners, which community college is a partner to every employer here in Tarrant County, can then say, okay, guys, this is the pathway. This is what employers need. This is what they're looking for. Because for many years, the primary pathway was a college degree. I don't know that that's true anymore. I don't know it's the majority. Maybe it's still very prevalent, but I don't know that the majority is looking that way. But there's so many credentials that we can provide individuals to help you hire them with the right skill set that you need for them to successfully perform in your organization. But there's a lot of those. And each organization is going to have a specific set of credentials that they need. So we touch on some competencies, right? So there's competencies that we touch upon. So for example, I always give this as an example, teamwork. I cannot tell you how much college students dislike teamwork. You probably at some point were a college student and you disliked teamwork at work. I have a former student back there and he can attest to the fact that he disliked teamwork. He's a successful business owner. But it's a competency that you guys valued and that employers want and that we need to have, right? And so providing that communication competency, right? In many ways, written and verbal, and now in a virtual model. So those are basics, and we provide those. But then beyond that, right? Again, community colleges do a great job of providing credential. My boss is his background is in aviation, so those guys graduate with an aviation mechanics certification from the FAA, right? So they can go work for a Delta, for American Airlines, for a smaller mom and pop shop that maintains the engines or rebuilds engines. So, but the more that we can understand what is it that is expected of the workforce of 2026, 27, and by the way, we need to think that far ahead because I'll give you an example, AI. I was just working on my curriculum for fall. And we're going to, one of the courses that I teach, we do customer discovery interviews. Those of you that are entrepreneurs, you know what I'm referring to. And so, hey, plug into AI what your business idea is and how should those customer discovery interviews should be, what questions should we be asking, and submit that to me. And then let's go out and do those customer discovery interviews, right? So trying to look at what are those things that we need to prepare them for in terms of competencies and credentialing.
Yeah, for us, we have everything from collectors on the phone calling customers, all the way up to computer engineers and data scientists building AI models. And I would say the credentialing versus experience is kind of a give and take thing. Some of our best technical people, one of them has a GED and the other one has a high school diploma. But they had experience and they've just done the job and they're amazing at what they do. Some of the folks we have graduate degrees in computer engineering, graduate degrees in computer engineering. And I think when interviewing and hiring, it's for a senior level position, I don't put a lot of weight into a credential or degree for those types of things. I'm more looking for the experience. Have they done what they say they can do? And that's the important thing at the end of the day. For hiring very junior people or people out of school, that's where those things come more into play because it's gonna heavily weigh how much goes into training that individual. And I think coming out of high school or coming out of college, most folks still have no idea what the workplace is like. So there's still a lot of on-the-job training, but maybe they have some skills that they're coming with as well. So it's a very case-by-case, give and take type
And
thing.
I think that will change. I think major employers are now discussing that. I mean, we attend a lot of job fairs and talk to employers, and often kind of behind the booth, they don't care about it, but then they go, well, corporate won't let us. And, so they're not able to move on it. So I think that it'll be interesting to see if we have change there. I have to tell a story about teamwork if I think we have time. So we were hosting a big meeting with a major employer here in the area. I won't say who it is. With the 3 commissioners, the one for Texas Workforce Commission, higher ed, education, and having similar conversations. And I had just the day before kind of been beaten up about teamwork from employers. And so I could not mention that. And this was a company with engineers, major, company, and they looked insulted that I had brought this up. And 2 seconds later, these same people were complaining, I'd use a stronger word if I could, about the lack of teamwork in their organization. And I just thought, sounded like what I just was talking about just a few minutes ago. So it's at all levels, I think, that some of the very basic things, essential skills, are needed wherever you go, no matter what company. So I believe that, no matter what. Okay. Going to move along to retention. That's another thing that seems to be the issue. And I'll kind of tie some of these things that Chad, you had brought up as far as even tying to attracting. Everybody immediately kind of knew that flexibility was the issue, and y'all have talked about some ways that y'all have learned to live with that. But but people also kind of started throwing money out there. Did that really work? And so as you're going through retention, you're looking at pay, you're looking at benefits, which was the better. But Leslie had asked this, have you noticed where your people are leaving? Where are they going and why? Do you know that? So can any of y'all help me with some of those questions that I've tied together beautifully here?
Yeah,
I'll look at Chad for
a few questions in there. So starting with benefits versus pay. While I personally believe benefits like healthcare and retirement plans and stuff like that are way more valuable than a little extra money, a lot of folks, especially younger folks,
Was
really
younger or older, did that make a difference?
younger folks especially have a hard time grasping the importance and value of something like a 401k plan. So while it should matter more to them, what I've experienced is that it doesn't, as much as, a little extra money. But even on top of that, especially recruiting, honestly, at all levels, pay has gone through the roof over the last year and a half. And recruiting and being competitive in that area has become nearly impossible, and especially for a small business that's budget constrained and trying to compete with the big businesses, it becomes very difficult. And the one thing that we've been able to do to differentiate ourselves is having something interesting that people want to work on. And I think that has been the number one recruiting tool that we have, is that what we're doing is different, and we're able to sell that and articulate it to potential hires and excite them, because in a way, we're also trying to recruit them as much as we're interviewing them. And being able to do that and articulate your story, and everybody that talks to them being able to do the same thing, excites potential hires and gets them motivated to take your job over somebody else's that maybe has a better package. On the rest of the multi-part question there, but retaining people.
Where are your people going? Do you know why?
And where they're going.
Or why they're leaving?
The same reason that people have left companies since the beginning of time, and it's their manager. So you can have the best culture in the world, but if folks don't get along with their manager, that's the number one reason everybody leaves any company. And what they call the Great Recession right now, it's become easier and easier to go find another job and get paid more money. So I think keeping a very close eye on that and doing exit interviews and making sure you understand why people are going and where they're going. If it's a specific company that's poaching employees, we had to take people off of our website. Lesson learned. But it's things like that. And for retaining, it's culture, making the communication clear, making people understand why their job is important to the larger organization, and making sure they feel that they have an impact on the results at the end of the day. And our greatest strength as small businesses is that we can be creative. In a large organization, it's very rigid, it's very bureaucratic. Your ability to create interesting programs is very difficult. In a small business, that's one of our biggest strengths, is that we can do things that make our business unique and attract talent. And piece of advice is find out what makes you unique. You could be a franchise fast food restaurant and have one store. There's thousands of them within 10 miles. But what is it about your store that's unique and differentiates it from everybody else? And lean into it.
I like that one.
I like that too, and I think that is so true. We focus as business owners so much on the unique value proposition we offer customers. It's the same on the other side. What is the unique value proposition that we're offering those that we want to hire and come work for us, right? My background is in organizational behavior, so a couple of things. One is money is a demotivator, but not a motivator. What do I mean by that? That the next day after you get a pay raise, you don't work any harder. But if you don't get that pay raise, you strike, right? Not like physically, but like mentally. You kind of move on, right? So it's figuring out, how do I create motivational opportunities for those that I want to hire that are already working for me. But recognizing that, yes, money is important. Don't get me wrong. We all want to make good money. We all want to make more money at some point. But it's not necessarily a motivator, but it can become a demotivator. And the last thing that I will say in terms of retention is I had a boss, my very first job, that said to me, make sure that you think about hiring people because that have that alignment and that have a talent that you recognize, because we can train skills. You know, our responsibility is to train them in the skill set that we need them to have. But we cannot train that talent that they innately bring with them, and that alignment with our values and what we believe is the way that this organization should be operated and run as.
Leslie?
I would say, based on what Chad had said, being creative where you can and encouraging your managers, if you have a team of people that are people leaders, that I try to tell everybody, you have a pie. I don't care if you cut it in 3 slices, 2 slices, or 85 slices. You still have a pie. Be creative with your pie. Be consistent and fair with it as well. And I think that's really critical, to encourage our leaders to know that each and every one of us come to work with the whole world behind us. And we all like to pretend like I'm at work, I don't have to think about my personal life. Well, you're not telling the truth, if that's the case. And know that you are investing in a person and in a family. So when you're hiring somebody, you're not just hiring, oh, I'm hiring an automotive mechanic. You're hiring his or hers partner. You're hiring the children and the aging parents that they have to go take care of. And that is very different from the next person that you're hiring that may be single on their own and living large, you know, and they have completely different wants. And to be creative in finding the way to attract them and tell them how they can do that. And in a large organization, I know we're getting better at feeling comfortable doing that. Oh, well, you make it sound like it's not being fair. It's very fair. Your pie is cut different than Chad's pie. It's still the same pie. It's just cut different. And so we have to get away from the idea that everything has to be exactly the same. Cookie cutter.
Well
Yeah.
said. Well said. Well, I appreciate our panelists and very much. Did a nice job. And it's time for questions and answers. So, pardon? But I don't. So, anybody have a question? Yes. I can hear you.
We can hear you.
Does anybody really want the mic on that one?
Sure. I mean,
Lourdes
for
is
me,
gonna-
innovation workforce means understanding what are the needs of the businesses that are part of our community, and figuring out how do we provide the skill sets that those individuals need to help those organizations. It also means, and I say this selfishly, and it's my selfish plug, and I will admit it, I believe that every single person that is educated should be educated with an entrepreneurial mindset. And what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is that the entrepreneurial mindset is open-minded. It's looking at ways to find solutions for problems that we encounter every day. Every employer wants somebody that is going to be able to look at things from different perspectives and say, hey, what about this? And let's think about this, and be open about the possibilities, and being a continuous learner, being the person that wants to always, learn something new. And it may be about what I'm interested in. I don't learn about everything, but I am continuously learning about things that I'm passionate about. So to me, that's developing an innovative workforce, right? From an educational standpoint, at least, is planting those seeds so that when they get to you guys can then continue to grow the plant to provide the fruit that is innovation, that is creativity, that is thinking ahead of what are the new things within your industries, within your areas of expertise.
Yes, I think you may follow up.
we have to ask the employers. We have to ask the businesses. We have to partner with you guys as employers to understand what it is that you're seeing in the horizon, and what is it that, how can we begin that process of working there? We are continuously partnering. We have in our boards, in our advisory boards at the college, employers, small business owners that we tap into and say, hey, what should our curriculum look like, going forward? What are the things we have to change? When I came to TCC 7 years ago, one of the first things I was tasked by the advisory board was to revamp the entrepreneurship program. And that was one of the first things, because it hadn't been looked at for 20 years. And in 20 years, a lot had changed about entrepreneurship and small business management. So that was one of the first things we did. And to be honest with you, at this point, we got to go back and probably redo it again. But we got to go to employers, we got to go to small businesses, and we got to say, hey, what is it that we need to add, delete, look for, in order to provide you with the right set of students or employees, soon-to-be employees, with the right set of skills.
Do we have time for one more? Yeah, okay. Renee is going to bring you a mic.
I'm going to tee up my question first, though. Thanks. I'm a new business. I'm in my 4th year. My first employee, I used a recruitment firm. That's expensive. I'm here because I need help, because I don't want to do that again. And so I have all of my SOPs, my code of conduct, my policies and procedures, and my KPIs for the roles that I want to hire. And I want to hire for competencies. I understand all the things that you're saying, but my fear in the back of my head is, can I make them show me in the interview that they can do what they can do, not just edit video or type the number of words, and can they be a team member, and can they make a phone call and book an appointment for me? Like, can I make them show me? I don't know what's allowed or not allowed.
100%.
Is anybody else asking these questions, or is it just me?
100%.
Thanks.
So
Yeah.
I used to work for a financial management, ultra-high wealth management company in the dark days between Mother Parkers. And one of the things we would do is we would bring these, I call them kids now because I'm that old, but college students that would come out and say, I can do these investments, I can make this, I can work at this trade desk. We would make them break up into teams, and we actually had business cases where they had to do teamwork. And they had to be able to problem solve immediately, learn on the fly, and they had to present their business case. And we only took the best of the best from those. We may bring in 30 candidates, and it was an all-day deal, and it took the entire business's time to do that, but we were making an extremely big investment in the 5 people that we wanted to hire. And absolutely, I mean, we do it on the production level. We will give people tasks, candidates tasks, and test them right then. Show me you can do that.
As long as you do it equally for every candidate that you interview, you're legal. You have to do it for every candidate. You can't just pick and choose which candidate does it and which candidate doesn't do it. Right. Every candidate you choose to interview has to go through the same process. You can absolutely do it. One of the companies I worked for was M&M Mars, the candy people. And I worked for Pedigree, which was their pet food division. And we used to have a desk where we would put admins, and they would have to generate a letter. They would, all this different stuff. Answer the phone. One of us would be on the other side of the office and pick it up and ask questions as if we were asking for that VP or that R&D department or whatever. And, and again, when I was hired at M&M Mars, it was the same process. There was 5 of us that came in. We had to work in a team. We had to create a project, solve, for a project. And then we did all this other stuff. It was a whole day affair. You were exhausted at the end of the day as a candidate, but they thought the same way. As Leslie said, we're making it a big investment. And for them, it was a kind of a lifetime investment. We're not somebody that hired from the outside a lot. So we want to make sure we get it right. So yes.
Yeah, and we do the same thing. And on the technical side of the world, it's a lot easier, and it's actually pretty common. but there's right and wrong ways to do things. You know, so a tech example is if you're going to give them a programming exercise, you want to simulate that exercise to be as real world as possible. So some companies will have you come in and write the code on a whiteboard, which no one in the world does. You know, there's a million assistive tools now, and you Google things, and there's, you know, nowadays people are working in multiple different languages, so there's different syntax. So like asking someone to do that it's just not reasonable, and it's not real world. So you want to give them a test that is going to simulate the real world day-to-day activities. And one of my favorite things to do when giving those exercises is to then review it with the candidate. And we intentionally make the tests in a way that are approachable, but then also have some ambiguity in them, because the real world is like that, right? Someone says, "Give me this," and they don't give you a lot of details. So we leave some of it open to their own interpretation, and the intention of that is for them to make some mistakes, no matter how skilled they are. We want them to make mistakes, because then we get to have that conversation, and we get to teach, and you get to see how someone interacts when you're coaching them. And I have uncovered a lot in those moments where we're coaching somebody during an interview, and how they react to that, you know, tells you more than, you know, 20 interviews with 20 different people. So, or 3 weeks on the job. Yeah, it's much better to do it up front and learn that, you know, that when you ask them to do something or change something, you know, how they're going to react to that, instead of after you've hired them. And
Well, guys, we are out of time. I want to thank Chad, Lourdes, and Leslie, and appreciate our audience who had plenty of room to spread out today. And anyhow, we appreciate your attendance. And again, I thank y'all.